Hey you guys, welcome again to another video. And as always, always, thank you so much for tuning in. This video here that you're about to watch is, well, first of all, if you're watching this and it's streaming live, it's not actually live. This is pre-record and I just did it as a premiere. So just keep that in mind when you're in the comment section or you're in the chat. Okay. This video here is, I don't really do videos. I used to do videos like this all the time, like back to back to back to back to back, where there's a lot of slides and we just doing deep dives and all of that. And I haven't done a video like this in a while. So I'm just letting you know right now up front that this is going to have a lot of info in it. Okay. So if you're a person that has you just don't have the time to watch it, and this is like, hey, you already like, just get to the point. This will not be the video for you. Okay. So yeah, I'm just letting you know that up front. Okay. If you're someone that, so if you don't have the time, maybe you can come back later and watch it when you do, when you do have the time. But other than that, if you're someone that just don't want to watch a long video or whatever, then this is not the video for you. Typically, I will put a video like this on our other channel that we have, which is called Long Form History. I would have put it on there, but I just kind of felt like I should put it on this platform here for now. So here we are. So, okay. So again, this is going to be a video that's going to be very involved. We're going to be going through a lot of info. So just keep that in mind as we're going through this. Okay. And it's going to be very important for you to watch this from start to finish. Okay. Because like I said, again, there's just a lot of stuff in there. So that's really the basics of it. That's it. This is a video that has taken me some time to put together. It's taken me some time to put together, and it's one that is going to really challenge, many of you, in how you see yourself, how you view history, how you view culture, just period. And it's going to challenge quite a bit of things there. So just make sure you just take the time for all that and keep all of that in mind as we kind of go through this. I might, after it's finished and after it's been out for a minute, I may chop it up and then, upload little bits and clips of it or whatever. I may do that. But for the time being, here we are. Okay. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into this video. Big shout out to our research group who have given early access to this video. If you want to join, you're more than welcome to do so. Just go to the front of our YouTube page and you'll see the word join, the research group. I have all the information there. Please follow the instructions. That way you can get the full benefit of being in the research group, not just something partial, but the full. That's what I want. That's the whole point of it. Okay. And you get access to a whole lot of other things too. Okay. Not just me doing special videos, but you get tangible things that you can take into your home. Okay. So anyway, so there you go. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. So today we're going to talk about this topic here. And the topic of today is American Scriptorium. A scriptorium basically was, in short, was a place where, in ancient times, it was a place where you had monks, holy men or whatever they want to call themselves, whose only task, their main task was to write and to do a lot of writing, to transcribe, to be scribes. Basically, this is a place where people would just spend days and weeks and years upon end, writing things down and recording them for posterity's sake. And so that's what a scriptorium is, in case for some of you who don't know what that is. And this is where our modern Bible comes from. The Bible that we have today, it was put together in places like a scriptorium, where they would take the ancient languages, and then transcribe it into Latin and whatever else they want to transcribe it into. And this is where pretty much our modern, what we call civilization, has followed in the instructions of what came out of these scriptoriums. And so that's what we live in today. America has its own scriptorium where everything, literally everything, has been given a role. Even the word itself lets you know script. So when you hear scriptures, it's a script. It's something that you follow. You know what I mean? It's something that you read, but it's also something that you follow. And it's no different than someone on stage. You are given a script to read, and you have to memorize it so you can do your performance. You can do your task. Okay, so let's go on here and continue. And like I mentioned just now, here's your script. For us as people who came through the transatlantic slave trade, we were given the script to follow and what this country was built on, supposedly, and it was the scriptures. Okay, and some people may say, well, they gave us it was a heavily edited version of the Bible, so we didn't get the whole Bible. Well, in many cases, we actually did. Yes, there was a such thing as the slave Bible, but that didn't apply to a lot of slaves. There were a lot of Africans who came over as slaves who did have access to most of the Bible, and this was what we used to build a new spirituality. When we came off of those ships, prior to being loaded on those ships, we had our own spiritualities. From wherever they pulled us from the continent, our people had their own spiritualities, but they beat that pretty much almost out of us. And I say almost because you can still see remnants of those African spiritual practices even when we came over here, and there still can be seen today in black churches and all of that. You can still see it, but the centerpiece of what we will say of black spirituality, at least in the Americas, is in fact the Bible. Okay, and it came from these people. No matter, I don't care who you talk to, because you got a lot of people out there who firmly believe that the Bible was handed to them personally by the angel Gabriel, or, they woke up one day and it was a glowing book sitting on their desk or on their nightstand, and that's how they got the Bible. But no, you got it from these people, the very people that did some of the most horrific things in history to you. They turned around and gave you this book and told you this is what you need to abide by. And we took it like anything else, and we made it personable. We made it our own. We added our own ingredients to it, but we never really deviated too far from the center script that was handed to us. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so regardless if you go into the Hebrew world or if you go into whatever religion of choice, most black folks have not deviated too far from the scriptures, right? And so this is something that has to be understood. No matter how many times you may click your heels together, close your eyes, and claim that it's yours. No, it's not. This is not yours. You have no evidence. You have no proof. Many of our people will look at certain things like recently we did the video on Deuteronomy 28, and we just went from verse 1 all the way to the end. And yes, there are some things that you can point to and say, yep, black people went through that. But we also opened the history books and we're able to point to other groups that can relate to those things as well. So you can't pick a couple of things and then claim the whole book based on a few things. That's ridiculous. Nobody in their right mind does that, but there are people who do. And what we have done is taken their script and made it our own, which is very dangerous. One of the things I was going to title this video actually "Getting Lost in Their Stories," because that's exactly what's happened. We have gotten lost in their stories, and we're going to just delve into this a little bit further. So let's go. All right. So first thing I want to talk about is how insurance companies work, and this is something that's going to help us lay the groundwork for where we're going to go with this discussion here. How insurance companies work, it's pretty simple. It's a little complex, but it's pretty simple. Basically, let's say you want to get life insurance. Okay, so when you want to get life insurance, you're not going to just go online and apply for it and then ta-da, now you got life insurance. I mean, there may be some out there that are like that, but in most cases, what's going to happen is when you get life insurance, if it's something substantial, they're going to send somebody to your wherever it is you're going to meet them, and they're going to do a physical, or they're going to tell you to go somewhere and get a physical done. After you've given them all the information about you, your habits, how old you are, how much you weigh, in your family history, is there anything in your family history that we should know about? They want to know all of those things. Why? Because based on that information, that is how much they're going to say, hey, listen, this is how much we're going to insure. All right. So you can't just walk in there and say, I want a $3 billion insurance policy. I mean, they're going to look at a whole bunch of things. If they determine that you are not worth $3 billion, you're not going to get it. It's just as simple as that. So they look at a whole list of different things to basically predict even when you're going to die. That's right. They can predict when you're going to die approximately. Okay. And now with this whole technology of AI, which we'll be talking about a little bit later in this discussion here, they're able to probably get even more accurate. They're going to ask different things like what, are you on prescriptions or your medications? Did you take the vaccine or whatever? All of those things become factors. Have you been in prison? All of these things. How much education do you have? And they take all of this information, and then they can pretty much determine based on their metrics how much you ultimately are worth. Okay. So that's in a nutshell how insurance companies work. And the same thing with car insurance as well. They're going to look at different factors as well. They even now look at your credit report. I still don't get that one, but that's those are metrics that they consider. They add it all into their mix. What kind of car do you have? What's your driving history? What's your age? What color your car? What color is your car? And they're going to look at all of those things. What state are you in? Do you park outside? Do you park inside? And all of that stuff. And now they have devices that you can plug into your car that will actually monitor you and collect even more data on how often do you brake? Do you brake very hard? Do you brake soft? And all of that stuff. And so they're collecting as much metadata as possible on you so that they can determine your worth. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one. Investors are pretty much operate the same way. Investors, you got two types of investors. You got an investor that will, basically, hey, listen, psst, hey, bud, I got this surefire situation going on. If you give me $1,000, I'm going to, blow it up into $3,000 or something. And that's all you need to know. You give him the $1,000 and, you probably get your $3,000 if he's good, and no questions asked. You ain't investigating nothing. You just want that extra money. Right. So you got investors like that just want a quick turnaround. They don't care. Right. Now, then you got the other investors. OK, these are the people that are the ones that really got a lot of money. I'm talking about the billionaires, that are out here, that old money. Now, people that have old money, some of these very wealthy families that are out here, well, they're not of money to them. They already have it. They're not, they're not like this here. OK, when a lot of our people, when we get money, unfortunately, we just want to show it off. OK, it ain't just our people, but there's other people, too. People who aren't used to having money. This is kind of how we act. But when you're talking about investors, real investors, people who have a ton of money and they have had a ton of money for a very long time, they're not just interested in accumulating more because that gets boring. What they're focused on is how to change whatever it is they want to change in society. OK, they see that the world is theirs and they can have a much bigger voice in it, in the direction of how society goes. And that's how money is a tool to get whatever it is their agenda, what they want their agenda to be, whatever their agenda is. Look at Bill Gates, for example. His agenda, he's made it very clear, is for depopulation, because he's one of many of these people out here who believe that the world is so densely populated that we're going to have to cull the sheep. We're going to have to cut down the population. So he has invested a great amount of money into that, right? Another of Bill Gates' investments is in the world of AI. He is investing in that because he's trying to collect as much data on people as possible, because AI is leading to something else, human replacement. And so this is where you have a lot of these billionaires. They're investing heavy money into human replacement, big time. So it's starting off with these little robots and stuff that you see in the Amazon factories and all that stuff. But it's going to go even further than that. The ultimate goal is to put you out of business and to get you replaced with something that they can have greater control. So investors at that level are looking more towards how they can implement whatever it is they want to see happen in society in general. And that's what they do. That's how they invest. All right, let's move on. And if you looked at the video that we did a while back about how America is a corporation, one of the things I said, it's foolish for anybody to sit here and to think and believe that you can actually establish a culture, or I should say maintain a culture for longevity in an environment like in a shopping mall. I was watching this show recently, and the guy, there was like a business deal that was going on, and the one guy, he wanted to buy what this other guy had, and the guy who had what this one guy wanted, he was like it's not for sale. And then the guy said, the guy that wanted to buy it, he said, "What are you talking about? This is America. Everything's for sale." And I had to laugh because he's absolutely right. America, the way this country was established, it was established as one big investment haven. And why, we talked about in that video, why was it that black folks were brought over here, or people from Africa? Why were they brought over here? We were brought over here to build the shopping malls, basically, which is America. And then you have investors coming from all over the world who benefited greatly off of that. And so I wrote down here, I said, how exactly do you create a long-lasting culture on a work site? You can't do it because, number one, culture is something that a lot of times is, yes, it can be transferable, but it's preferable to be on its own land, on its land of origin. Once you are moved away from your land of origin, it becomes a lot more difficult for you to maintain that culture, especially when you are brought into a situation that is designed, or in a system that's not designed or is not prioritizing maintaining your culture. The American system, I don't care if they say this is the great melting pot of the world and all of these different cultures. We want you to all to come, bring your poor, your weak, and your blind, and all this other stuff that they say. And they say, bring it all because we just want all these cultures to come together. That sounds good for advertising, but in reality, you cannot maintain culture for too long in an environment like that. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, and this is the analogy I use, we're going to stick with the melting pot scenario. If I got a melting pot of all these different cultures, and I'm putting the Africans with the Greeks and the Jews and the Mexicans and all this stuff, it's all of those different unique cultures. There's going to be different things that are going to be lost as a result of that. Do you understand what I'm saying? And by doing so, it makes it a lot easier for the person who owns the pot to control all of it. That's the trick. That's the trick. That's why they want it in a melting pot, because it creates a unique flavor or a unique thing that they can now control. But if it's singular cultures, it makes it a lot difficult, doesn't it? Because you don't have a connection. You don't really understand the land that the people came off of, nor their language and all that stuff. There's a lot of things that are just, you can't really control it, because you're like, What are these people? So you got to do it by force. So this is part of a much bigger plan that we're going to talk about as we go on in this conversation, as to what the ultimate goal is for these individuals who are in control of this system that we're talking about. So again, just to recap, this is not the place for us or anybody to maintain a culture that's going to last for generations. If you look at, and we've talked about this even in that video that I'm referring to, when you look at what we, getting back to what we call black culture, for example, if you notice the amount of soul food restaurants, for example, I mean, they have drastically have been reduced over the years. I mean, really, and not as many as, let's say, in my generation. You don't see that many. You see other, there are black restaurants, but it's certainly not like what it was back then. Chinese restaurants, I've talked about that. You go into many of these Chinese restaurants, the Chinese people themselves will tell you that this is Americanized Chinese food. And we just customize it based on the population here. And it's a fun fact, a lot of Chinese restaurants they actually customize their food in the earlier days. I'm talking about here in America, to accommodate black folks. I don't know if many of you knew that, but because Chinese were also excluded out of mainstream society when they were brought over here, they were forced to kind of cohabitate with many black folks. So, Chinese being who they are, and like any other group, they had their own business, they had their own restaurants and stuff like that. So they began to customize their food based on the palate of black folks. And you'll see that out west. And you also, it was a wonderful video I came across down in, I want to say it was like Mississippi. It was like deep south. And there's lots of stories that are like there where you got Chinese people down there that have been down there for generations. And they customize their food to fit the palate that's here. But if I were to go to China and ask them for General Tso's chicken, they're gonna be like, what are you talking about? General who? You know what I'm saying? And they may have something similar to that, but no, they had to customize it for here. My point is that, so what they had to do is attenuate to a measure their culture to accommodate the dominant culture that was here. And the dominant culture that's here in America is business. It's business at the end of the day. You understand? So again, this is not a place for you to build a long lasting culture. This is not the place to do that, because we're already seeing the destruction of many of our cultures, unfortunately. And I tell you, just what I've seen in the last few days, there were several graduations that took place, in predominantly black graduations, and there's gunfire. I mean, who brings a gun to graduation, college and high school? Now, I know some of y'all that are listening right now, whoa, those are people, those are really, they could have been white people as spies that came in there. We do this stuff. And the sad thing is happening more and more and more. And right before our eyes, we're seeing what we would call black culture. We're seeing it come apart. And that's just the facts. And I know that's hard to say, and it really is, but it is. But it's not just black culture, it's other cultures as well that are falling apart. And as we go on in this conversation, you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's talk about social media. Social media in of itself, the purpose of social media is to collect as much data as possible. It is not a right, as a lot of people would try to make it seem. Social media is not a right. It's simply a tool that's used to collect as much data as possible. So all those little pictures that you upload, or all those videos that you've uploaded, and think pieces and comments and all of that stuff, it's literally collecting as all of this data to feed into this next generation of controllable population, and that is the world of AI. And that's the next step of where we're heading right now. So you got servers literally, this is why Google, Facebook, or Meta, They've investing millions and millions and millions, if not billions of dollars into servers. I know out here where we live, there's a guy that just moved in our community. I happened to talk to him, and he's a crane operator. And he was just saying the data centers that they're just building around here. He said we're middle of building one right now, and a few miles from there, they're going to be building another one. And I tell you, data centers are going all over the place. What's the point? And what's the purpose? The purpose is for you to collect as much data on you as possible, because they need all the nuances and things that we as humans produce on a daily basis, so that they can create what the next stage is and what they want to do, so that they can easily control it. Let me see. We're going to talk specifically about YouTube in a moment here, but let's get into this right here. Everything that you see, and this is one of the things we mentioned in that American Inc. video that we did. You have to see every demographic that's out here today is a demographic. You got to see it as it's almost like a stock or a share. And you remember in that video, we talked about how when, this is going back in, this is during the Civil War days, where you had two economies. You had the Union, they had their economy, and the Confederacy had their economy. Well, we talked more about the Confederacy and how they had their own monetary system, and they had different banks. They didn't have a singular central bank. They had many banks, and many of these banks will produce their own money, and that money was backed sometimes, rarely on, sometimes on gold, sometimes on silver, but there was also times it was backed literally off of slaves. We were seen as a commodity. And so when and this is going back to what I was saying earlier about investors and investors in this, and what their ultimate goal is. Their ultimate goal is to control. Okay. So let's say, for example, I think this was an example I used. If I wanted to control the housing market, for example, what I would do is not just invest in lumber. I would also invest in concrete. I would also invest in copper, that's used for, for wiring, electric wiring. And I would also invest in, whatever I need to invest in for the materials that I need in roofing. I would invest in all of these things, and that would give me a more holistic way of controlling the market. So likewise, individuals, demographics are just like that. If I want to control a specific demographic, I'm going to invest in everything that demographic touches, everything. And so things like, for example, and these are just some quick, very, very quick examples that I put up here. Like for example, if I want black people to think a specific way, what am I going to do? I'm going to invest in people that share my ideologies, right? And my ultimate goals. So what I'm going to do is I'm invest in these individuals here, individuals like this, Leonard, Larry McKelvey, also known as Charlemagne the God, Van Jones, who, by the way, the man over Amazon gave him $100 million. I don't know if you've seen that article or heard that news. This is about, at the time of this recording, I would say it's about a year ago. He was given $100 million to basically spend on however he wanted to spend it in regards to making the world a better place. He was given $100 million. You imagine someone coming up to you and giving you $100 million? Well, that's what happened. And so he was given $100 million to spend however he wants. He's also heavily politically connected. And he's also a commentator. So, yeah, that means he's going to be making some serious moves based on the person that gave him that money. Okay. Joy Reid, Joy Reid is connected to MSNBC. Whoever are the investors of MSNBC want her to be where she is right now, and they want her to say the things that she's going to say. So they put their money in that place to make sure that their message is getting out to this particular demographic. Nia Malika Henderson, same thing. All right. This is all like I just did politics, right? Obama, Kamala Harris, Maxine Waters. I mean, what the heck is Maxine Waters even doing? I mean, I literally don't even know what she does at this point. Tim Scott, even though he's on the other side of the aisle, still. The true investors of this system that we're in, they look at black folks like they look at every other demographic as a stock, as a share. And so they invest in the other things around it to make sure that this particular company is going into the direction they want it to go. Okay? So I just want to make sure you follow me on that and how this all works here. Same thing in the world of music, same thing. It doesn't matter if it's gospel music or R&B or pop or whatever. It doesn't matter. The investors are going to promote those artists that reflect their values, not yours. Now, you understand, like people like Sexy Red, for example. Now, the truth be told, if you really know black folks, there are a lot of black people that can't stand her. Now, if you look at the advertisements and stuff that's out about her and all the promotions she's getting, you would think this girl is super talented, but she's not. But why is she getting promoted? Because she reflects certain values that these investors want to see in black people. And it's the same thing in the world of gospel music. The double lives that you see, all of that, we're going to promote it because that's what we want to see in black people. We want to see black folks live a life that's a double life. So we're going to invest in that. And so what's sad is that many people will look up to these individuals and think that these are the examples that we are to follow. And so, and sadly, because we've been trained to do that, starting from slavery, we tend to follow that. So when you have, I'm talking like the world of gospel music, for example, when you have these individuals that are living these double lives and it all comes out to the open, instead of holding them to a standard, you instead of holding them to an ultimate standard where it's like, no, that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? No, you're not supposed to live a double life. Instead, now what you're doing is if they're living a double life and you're living a double life, guess what's going to happen? Well, now the standard that should be up is now lowered because now you can relate to this person. Now you can say, well, hey, listen, if they screwing around, I can screw around. If they doing this, I can do this. Because they're the standard. And we're all human after all. And this is exactly what these investors, now this word investor, you're going to see it change as we go on in this conversation. Okay. So we're just sticking with investors for now. Because as I said, again, I'm going to repeat that again. These investors, it's not about money. If you think this is all simply about money, then you're totally missing this. It is not solely strictly just about money. Okay. It's about pushing an agenda, specific agendas. And what we're talking about in this discussion, we're specifically for now talking about black folks, but you're going to see this expand in a moment. So like the whole Drake and Kendrick Lamar, whatever his name is, that whole fake beef thing that was going on. Well, they invest in that because it gets more involvement in black folks because they know we like drama. We like seeing our own fight one another. I don't understand that. We love seeing our people going off on each other. I mean, so much so you had, what was his name? Nick Cannon had a whole show where it was about black folks basically what we used to say busting on each other. Your mama so this and that or whatever. Well, your father is this. You so fat and all this other stuff. We literally have a competition and who can out degrade one another. A competition. I mean, think about this for a second. A whole competition on who can degrade one another. And meanwhile, there are people in the background that's investing in all this. They're just rubbing their hands and they're saying, you know what? This is exactly what we want. Yep, keep on, keep on. That's right. Keep on, Nick Cannon. Keep on doing what you're doing. Keep impregnating as many women as possible. This is exactly what we want. You are setting the tone and the example that we want for our ultimate investment, and that is black folks. All right. Remember this, dude. When he came out and he put the knee down and all of that stuff, and how people were all up, that's right. He making a stand for our people, and we gonna stand with them. Well, guess who else was standing with them? Nike. You see, Nike turning controversy into dollars. And this thing was so obvious to me. When I saw how people were, and this is Colin Kaepernick, when I saw how people I'm talking about our people, black folks, were rallying around him. And one of the ways they said they was going to rally around him was by buying his jersey. And I was like, ho, wait a minute, slow down for a second now. Slow down for a second. So you're going to invest in Nike, who's a main player in the NFL, and so you're going to invest in them, but you're going to and think you're doing a protest against the NFL. Nah, you actually giving the NFL more money by doing this. Because NFL, they get a piece of all those shirts, all that stuff that they sell. They get a piece of all of that. That's why it's NFL, it's licensed gear. And you have, and it was pictures all on social media of black men wearing their new purchased Colin Kaepernick NFL shirts. But we're protesting against the NFL. And then you had Jay-Z jump into the mix and said, all right, let me jump in there. Let me come up in here and I'm going to set the record straight here. And I'm going to meet with the guy. I'm going to meet with the head over at NFL, and we're going to demand that he does something for black people, because Black Lives Matter, and he needs to understand that, right? And black people are like, yeah, that's right. You go in there. You go in there. He came out of there. Next thing you know, basically you find out all he really negotiated was for him to have control over the next few halftime shows in future Super Bowls. So that means he was pretty much managing the halftime shows and getting the entertainment and all that. You know how they just had Usher, and then another year they had somebody else. That was all Jay-Z. Jay-Z was making all that money. So all Jay-Z did, he took all of that energy and turned it into cash for himself. Now, I think they also pushed to get some black coaches or something in there, but it was really nothing. Most of what Jay-Z negotiated was for him and to give, and for the NFL to donate to some charities. I'm sure Jay-Z was probably tied to as well. So this is how this thing goes, how they take this stuff and they just keep you still on the plantation. All right, let's continue. We're moving on here. How many of y'all remember, well, some of y'all, I'm sure some of y'all remember Public Enemy in his heyday. Now, some of you younger folks, I'm sure you may have heard of Public Enemy, but it's another thing if you lived through it. Public Enemy was one of these groups in my generation. I feel they had something. It was more, it transcended just entertainment. It was something that when they did Fight the Power, when they did Welcome to the Terror Dome, those are at least two songs, and there were some other ones they did too, that when you heard them, it was something that rose up inside of you as a black individual in those days, where you were ready to go do something. And I don't mean just ready to go do something. We're going to burn down some buildings or something like that. But it did something where it called you to action. The problem is we didn't have a plan. but it called us into action when we heard that song. We were like at attention. We were ready to do something. And that's something that I think our people, many of our people have. If we were to really tap into who we really are, it's in there. The closest thing I would compare it to, and it still misses it by many miles, but it's the closest thing I can come to. It was the Stono Rebellion back in the day, and this is in South Carolina. If you read the account of the Stono Rebellion, what basically happened there is that you had these Congo men. They got together and they said, you know what, the heck with all this stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to gather our people together on all these surrounding plantations, and we're going to wipe these people out. And so what they did was they got their drums, and they could hear, they got drums from somewhere, and they said all over in that region, you can just hear them drums just playing. And once you start, those drums start playing, it called the people to attention, and they literally knew, okay, it's time to put in our plan. And their plan was one thing and one thing only. We're going to wipe these people out. And they were taking a lot of people out. But unfortunately, it ain't but so much you can do when you're going against people with a lot of guns. You know what I'm saying? And so, but they were able to at least make a serious statement. And then Nat Turner, same thing. It was just something about it. But the Stono Rebellion, it was really known for the fact that they was able to use these drums and to call people to attention. So anyway, going back to Public Enemy here. Public Enemy, like I said again, there was something about them they had that really called black people into attention. But again, it couldn't go but so far, because black folks were brought here to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to work. We weren't brought here to start a revolution. We were brought here to work and work only. That's it. That's why we were brought here. And so it got to a certain point where something had to happen. And so, like I said, big hat off to Griff, Professor Griff, because he kept it real, I think, the whole time. And I'm going to read to you what actually happened for those of you who don't know, because they had to break this group up. And this is from the New York Times. The first part is from the New York Times. The other is from Wikipedia. But Public Enemy rap group reorganizes after anti-Semitic comments. So this is back in '89. So even back then they were doing this. Public Enemy, a rap group whose disbandment had been announced by the record company in the wake of the anti-Semitic statements by his Minister of Information is back in action, according to a statement released by the group on Wednesday. Public Enemy's third album, Fear of a Black Planet, is to appear this winter, and two of its see, this is what I'm saying. This is where it started. See, now you're talking revolution. Fear of a Black Planet, that album, is to appear this winter, and two of his three performing members, the rapper William Flavor Flav Drayton and his disc jockey, I haven't heard that in a while, Norman Terminator X Rogers, are also working on solo albums. Chuck D is the group's songwriter and main rapper. One of Public Enemy's songs, Fight the Power, is on the soundtrack of Spike Lee's new film, Do the Right Thing, and a home video of the group, Fight the Power Live, has just been released. Controversy around the band began after Richard Griffin, I'll say Professor Griff, formerly Public Enemy Minister of Information, said in an interview with the Washington Times, now this is according to YouTube monitors, AI monitors, I'm reading an article. This is what the article says. It says the Jews are wicked and we can provide this, Mr. Griffin said. And we can prove this, who is known in the group as Professor Griff, also said that Jews are responsible for the majority of wickedness that goes on across the globe. Okay. This is what he said. So, of course, that caused some serious issues. All right. And then now we're going to jump to Wikipedia, because Wikipedia gives us a little bit more here. In a series of press conferences, Griffin was either fired, quit, or never left. Def Jam co-founder Rick Rubin had already left the label by then, making his place alongside Russell Simmons with Lior Cohen, the son of Israeli immigrants, who had run Rush Artist Management since 1985. Before the dust settled, Cohen claims to have arranged a Holocaust museum to give the band a private tour. So even then, they were doing this stuff. You say anything about our people, we're going to give you a tour of our museum. We're going to sit you down with our rabbis, the whole nine, right? In an attempt to diffuse the situation, Public Enemy's frontman Chuck D first expressed an apology on Griffin's behalf and fired Griffin soon thereafter. Griffin later rejoined the group, provoking more protests, causing Chuck D to briefly disband the group. When Public Enemy reformed due to increasing attention from the press and pressure from Def Jam hierarchy, Griffin was no longer with the group. And it goes on. I'm skipping here. In the 2009 book Analytics, Griffin once again admitted to the faults of his 89 statement to say the Jews are responsible for the majority of wickedness that went on around the globe. I would have to know about the majority of wickedness that went on around the globe, which is impossible. I am not the best knower. God is. Okay, so he backtracked on himself. Okay, then not only knowing that, I would have to know the crux of all the problems around the world to blame Jewish people, which is not correct. So like I said, he backtracked on himself. All right. Let's see. And then he said there was some other things he said too, but they threw him under the bus. And ever since then, Public Enemy was just, Public Enemy was, once Professor Griff left the group, it wasn't even the group. It really wasn't. Now Public Enemy, they were doing like rock songs and all this stuff. It turned into something else. And now when you look at Public Enemy concerts, like if Chuck D shows up, anywhere, if you look at the audience, the majority of the audience is white. It ain't like what it was. See, back then they were literally raising a movement. It was literally a movement. They have songs where they were even speaking out against LGBT. That's how powerful they were. But this group had to be broken up because why? It was something that they at that time could not control. What we call today hip hop was just merely an expression. It was something that it just came out of us, and quickly these powers that shouldn't be had to find a way to squelch it because it was getting out of control, because we moved from just merely dancing to now we're ready to start taking power and stepping in power. So they had to shut it down. You understand what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and continue in this here. So let's go. So ever since then, I can't honestly say, when you think about any other movements since then, I honestly can't think of any other movement that even comes close to what Public Enemy was scratching on. For those of you who identify as Hebrews, for example, let me ask you something. What is your fight song? What is your fight the power song? What is your Welcome to the Terror Dome song? Think about this for a second. I'm going to put the camera back on. I'm going to ask so you can see me, and I want you to answer. Put in the chat, put in the comments, whatever. What is the Hebrew fight the power? What is the Hebrew Welcome to the Terror Dome? Or 911 is a joke? What's the Hebrew version of that? The Shema song? Yeah, it's the Shema song. Yeah, that one. Shema Israel. That's your fight song? A song that you had to borrow from another group of people? That's your fight song? Really? It's amazing the things that we have abandoned because we want to be accepted by other people. What they were doing, what they were on the cusp of, it was something that was coming from within. And it was bringing other people. It was igniting something in the atmosphere with other people. The problem was we didn't have a plan. I can't call people to attention if I don't have a plan to give them so that they can walk in it. Because otherwise the people are going to be like, oh, really? Let me turn back over. Ain't no playing here. Anyway, let's continue. Let's move on. This is going, moving a lot further than faster than I thought it would be. So the people that we are talking about here, and this is something that you got to understand, they have studied you. All right. And this applies to anybody. I don't care if you're black, white, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But specifically black folks, they have studied you from the outside to the in. I mean, down to the cellular level. They have studied you. They have experimented on you. Both our men and our women. And there's a lot of historical records showing this. There's I forgot which book it was. I was reading where they talked about how some of the Ivy League schools, the medical schools, they literally used to hire black folks to go into black cemeteries to dig up the people in those cemeteries, the bodies in those cemeteries, bring them back to the Ivy League schools so that they can do experiments on them and dissect them. And then after that, after them chop the bodies up even more, then they tell them, put it in a bag, go ahead and just throw it in the back somewhere. So the people, this system that we're dealing with is a system that is fully invested for years in understanding and knowing who you are down to even the cellular level. This is how much research they have done on you. You know, and here's some other examples here that you see on the screen. Because if you're going to invest in something, you're going to do your research. Let me say that again. If you're going to invest in something, you are going to do your research. A good investor, they're not going to just throw their money out there and say, oh, I can make double my money. Okay, shoot, let me put my money in there. No. They got some of these investors. If you listen to some of these investors out here, I'm talking about real investors that got a lot of money. They have whole research teams that they pay and they say, all right, go on out there. I'll pay for your plane ticket. I want you to go out there and I want you to survey the land. I want you to survey the area. I'll put you up in a hotel for a couple of weeks so you can investigate the whole thing, write me a report, send it back to me, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do. Likewise, when black folks were brought over here, yes, you were brought over here to work, but you was also brought over here to be a blueprint for a much bigger thing that they had in mind for everybody else in this country. So what they had to do is that they needed your bodies literally to investigate. So they would literally go down and break down your body, strip your skin off, inject all kinds of stuff in you and just do all kinds of stuff to your body so that they can find all the ins and outs. What's the fears that you have? What are the things that make you itch? What are the things that, how much heat can you take? How much cold can you take? If I take skin off of here, what would that do? If I remove this, what would that do? Can you operate? Can you still walk if I take this off of you and all this stuff? So they had to break your body down literally. This is something you got to understand. And the reason why I'm taking the time to explain this is because you think a march is going to overcome a person, a group of people that think like this. A march ain't going to do that. The people that you're marching against have literally broken your body down to the cellular level. And so if you want to talk about if they know you or not, oh yeah, they really know you, baby. But you want to march or you want to get on YouTube and do a fiery video and think they shaking in their boots. They ain't shaking in nothing because you ain't done no investigation. If someone gives you a book and tell you to read it, you get mad and scared and run from it. These people have done their absolute homework. Let's continue here. And here's some articles I just pulled up here. Decoding empathy, brain circuit for recognizing emotions identified. I ain't going to read all that, but this is the level that these people get to. CRISPR screens unlock brain's black box. And they said scientists have developed a revolutionary CRISPR screening method called the vivo, perturb something, which allows for rapid and comprehensive analysis of gene function in individual brain cells. And this is the level that they get to. And it says, this is the level of research they have done on you. Where is your research on them? Well, they just mean to us. That's all. They understand how you think from a psychological standpoint, physiological. They got it all up and down. Because again, if you're going to invest in something, you're going to do your research. Let's continue. When it gets to your economics, one of the things we talk about is how black folks, we may be ranked, I forgot, at the 4th or the 7th, I can't remember, largest country in the world have used to put all of our money together, that kind of thing. Yeah, collectively, we may generate a lot of money, but there's also things that have been put in place to make sure that there's that money is stale. In other words, it doesn't really go anywhere. One of the things they've done is churches. Put all your money in the church. This is why churches have been put in our communities like this, as many as they have been, because by investing constantly in a building that literally you're not going to use only but 2 days out of the week, maybe, your money, those millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that could have gone to building housing, buying land, creating farms, creating all kinds of different opportunities, you'll never move ahead. So they had to bring in religion as a way to stall any kind of economic growth. Think about all these mega churches that were built in the late 90s, early 2000s, and now they can barely get anybody up in there now. Someone's still paying for the utilities. Someone's still paying for the taxes and all that stuff. But it's a trap. These churches investing all that money in these big old buildings, it was an economic trap designed to keep our money tied up in things that really don't mean anything. Don't you know that don't you think these banks, listen, let me bring this screen back up here. Let me bring the camera back up here. These big banks, when we were going to New Birth in Atlanta, this is years ago, many years ago. They got their primary loan from, I want to say Nations Bank. It was Bank of America. Bank of America, that's where they got their primary loan from. We know because we were there. We were members there at one point. And again, when you're dealing with millions of dollars, I want you to understand this. When you're dealing with millions of dollars, you're not going to just say, you know what? I just want to help these darkies. I'm just going to give them millions of dollars because we really think it's the right thing to do. And we just love seeing, black people move ahead and all this other stuff. No, absolutely not. They don't care about you, and they don't care about your spirituality. So these banks, they've already done the calculations on how long this thing is going to last, when it's going to default, what government rescue programs they're going to be able to take part of, where they'll be able to get even more money back. They've already done that, baby. Anytime you see these big banks investing in these large churches and investing in black programs that are designed to, on the front covers, it's designed to help and better black people. You think they're doing that because they really want to see you excel and get to a place where you're above them? Do you really think that? Do you really think that after all this time? You really think that the person that is the people that are controlling this thing, they want to see you get to a level where one day, shoot, you might be sitting in my chair. You really believe that? No. They've done the math. They understand when we give this church this money, this is about as far as they're going to go because we already done the testing. We've test marketed this. We've already done the projections. We know all this stuff. And with this, by investing in this, it's going to keep all of these people in this community. It's going to keep all their money tied into going into churches like this, right? So they'll barely have money. They're going to spend their top dollar and keeping this church going. Meanwhile, it's increasing the chances that if they want to get, they're going to have to get a loan to get, if they want to get a house, they're going to have to get a loan. Oh, no. They see, they're not thinking about See, because we want to eliminate any chances of them actually thinking that if they save their money, they can buy a house outright. We want to eliminate that. So let's get them to think about loans. All right. So what's the ways we can get them to think about loans? Okay. Well, let's get plenty of churches in there so that all their money can get tied up. And so as their money is all tied up, they're not going to have enough money. They're barely going to have enough money to put a down payment. Well, we can help them too with that. We got another program for that. We could tie more in that. And let's throw them some credit cards at that. So these things are put into place purposely to keep black folks at a certain level. That's why they're there. Okay. And so I just wanted to emphasize that. So let's move on. Let's move on. All right. This one right here. Investors invest in the narrative they want to see. This is what we've been saying here. Did you know that Tubi was actually was a subsidiary of Fox, the same people that own Fox News? Yes. So all of that trashy stuff that's on Tubi, which I don't have, I just see clips of it on TikTok. Black folks may be putting up the content, but the ratchetness stuff that's being uploaded, it's getting green lit a lot quicker. Why? Because the investors want to see more of it, because it keeps us at a certain level in how we think and how we see ourselves. So the Fox News, they're like, hey, that's all right. They're doing exactly what we want them to be. They're doing it. So let's invest in it. Let's create a platform called Tubi. And then you got Real Housewives of Atlanta, that kind of stuff. And we just crowd all into that. Madea goes to jail, and, Tyler Perry. All of this stuff is, you think Tyler Perry is where he is because, he's just a wizard, a genius? No, he's backed by people who want to see what Tyler Perry, they want to see a big, rusty black man dress up like a woman. They want to see that. They want to see movies that are about dysfunction at the funeral or at the wedding or whatever. Any movies that's about dysfunction, they're going to promote it because that's what they see this is their ultimate plan for this investment they have in black folks. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. And then, these are some extra things here. Like, for example, hip hop supposedly that's our thing, right? We black folks here in the States, we came up with that. And here you have, unfortunately, the person that owns the words hip hop movement, who has his trademark, is his name is Ronald Savage. He's out of New York, and he's been around for a long time. He used to be with Africa Bambaataa before he got on his mess. And he trademarked the words hip hop movement. But I'm wondering, how much is he benefiting off of anything that's hip hop? Probably nothing. He owns the words, but they control the system of hip hop. But we glad we got the trademark now, Here's another case. Got the FBA people, Foundational Black Americans. In this case, you got Tariq Nasheed. He bought the trademark for the words Foundational Black Americans, and he's got it tied to products that he sells. And you got black folks that are following this fool and believe that somehow it's our culture and all of that. But what exactly are you building? What are you constructing? What are you doing besides starting arguments on Twitter? You're not building anything. Even his museum, I don't even think the museum is even open now. Black folks raised over $1 million. It may have been close to $2 million for this museum. And when the museum finally opened, someone took a quick walk through it. Most of it is filled with stuff that someone must have bought off of Etsy or eBay. And that's it. It wasn't even any real artifacts in there. And then he ended up turning it into like a comedy club. So again, these little things pop up as a way of tying up black capital, black money, so that you can never move ahead, never move forward. I don't know what I got this for. So we, basically I'll just flash this up real quick. So we invest in things like this, things that we don't own or control. I'll just say that. I can't remember exactly what that was for. Let's see. I'll just mention, yeah. Okay. Okay. This will be, because what I did is I put all of these slides together and just in not any particular order. And then afterwards I said, okay, let me put them in order. This one I was trying to, okay, I think I know how I'm going to do this. Okay. So everything that we see, everything is scripted. Everything is. All right. So everything that I've covered up to this point here, what it is, what we're seeing, what we're witnessing when it comes to specifically our people, but this is for everybody else too. We're just talking about black people in this video. It's a result of the individuals or the collective accepting the script that has been given to you, accepting the role that's been given to you. But everything, make no mistake about it, is scripted. Even when you talk about the White House. When Obama, for example, I still scratch my head at the fact that here you got Obama, a former president of the United States, has a movie company. I've never heard of that, but he has one. And it's a family affair, apparently, because now his daughter is now she's getting into the movies. And then I had something here to Wag the Dog. Wag the Dog, if you haven't seen that, that talks all about that. How Hollywood works hand in hand with, directing and scripting what we see coming out of Washington. Anyway, let's move on here. Okay, now, fasten your seatbelts. This is where it really gets something. We're really going to be getting into it now, all right? So YouTube, we're on YouTube right now. You're watching this right now. We're on YouTube, and on YouTube, like any other social media platform, you have gatekeepers. All right. We all know this. So what that means basically is there are certain things on this platform that they're going to allow, and there's other things that they're not going to allow, period. All right. I wrote down here, I said, social media is an illusion of free speech. It is a tool used by investors and social architects to make sure that society is staying on track with their projections. Okay. All right. Now we're getting to the, okay. So I'll just continue here. So when you see all these so-called movements that you think are spontaneous, make no mistake about it. They have already have a script for it. It's something, if they're allowing it, that means they're controlling it. Let me say that again. If they're allowing it on their plantation, that means they are controlling it. Okay. Let me say that one more time, because you need to make sure you're hearing what I'm saying. If they are allowing it, that means they are controlling it. All right. So you got some examples here, the Passport Brothers situation. You got the black women who want to divest from black men. You remember the Tariq Nasheed versus Dane Calloway stuff. And, and both with these individuals, what they talk about. You got the Hebrew Israelites who get on and say what they say on social media. You got the Moors. You got the people who claim they want to be, they're the real Native Americans. All of these things here, these fight videos, us eating ourselves to death, the trans movement, even that's all negative, but even some of the positive things, if they are allowing it on their plantation, that means that they are controlling it. Even yours truly. I'm controlled by this plantation as long as I'm on it, right? Well, what I mean by that, let me give you an example. So let's say for me, I can get up here and say some things that may be really thought provoking, and you're like, "Oh, you gonna say that? Oh, I don't know," and I say it or whatever. Now, and YouTube doesn't do anything. But let's say, for example, I get up here and I start telling y'all, you know what? Check this out. I was able to get some blueprints of the White House, and I'm able to show you where Biden really sleeps. and I'm able to show you where they keep the guns and all this other. Click, gone. I'll be gone. You won't even see me. You wouldn't even see me. I'll be gone. Or if I'm giving you like, okay, this is when Biden's his security detail, this is when they switch out and all this stuff. And here's the blueprint of their that big old vehicle that he drives or he rides in. It's called the Beast. And I can tell you where they get that fix and all. I can give you all the detail. If I was to get on here right now and start giving you all that information, man, they would cut me completely. I would be gone. They would already be at my front door right now if I was giving that kind of information. Why? Because that is a direct, real, in your face threat to those that control this plantation. And that's something they're like, we got to get on top of this. They'll take it out immediately. If I say some derogatory things about a certain group of people, I'll be gone. They'll take it out immediately, wouldn't they? But all the other foolishness, it was so funny. I was on Twitter today and Elon Musk, he tweeted, he said, he was talking about how his how X or Twitter or whatever, he was bragging about how we don't have child porn on here. We fight hard against that. But anybody that's on Twitter, that Twitter has got a lot of stuff on there. You'll be looking at a post about someone's dog, and then you scroll down the comments. Next thing you know, you'll see a post of someone getting it on or some other stuff. It's a lot of that on Twitter. And so, but they allow it. And he knows they allow it. Because if you have the mechanisms to, let's say, to get rid of child porn, you also have mechanisms to get rid of all porn. But why is it that it's still on your on your platform? Why is it? It's because you allow it. And you allow it because you want it to be out there because it has a certain impact on the population that you want. So there's two types of things that they allow. They allow things on there that they'll let people blow off some steam. Hey, I hate the government and all this other stuff. They're like, yeah, whatever. And so they allow that, right? But then, like I said, again, if it's something that, if I'm divulging into some stuff that's really like 911 crazy stuff, they're going to jump right on that, right? But they allow a lot of stuff. They allow a lot of things to be on here, and they do it as a way of using that as a way of measuring where people really are. Like I gave an example just the other day. It was, what was I talking about? It was, the video that was going around regarding the, it was a video that someone was claiming that it was, what was it? Slavery going on in the Congo. And this video supposedly was showing a real life slave auction going on in Congo. But when you looked at, and then later on it came out that it wasn't. It was something in Nigeria and all this other stuff, right? And that video, it just went wildfire. People just jumped all on that one and was saying, yeah, that's right. This is real. But I do, but but again, it came out as a lie, but later on, but then I said, okay, you got videos like that. And what I was trying to say is that videos like that will go viral. And especially when it's something that's negative, it will go viral. But if a video like that really breaks down and takes the time and say, okay, y'all, we really going to get to know our true history, but it's going to require something of you. You're going to have to investigate. You're going to have to read and all that. Oh, please, man, you can't even buy people to watch that stuff like that sometimes, most of the times. And so they will allow things like that. If I'm sitting up here telling people, listen, this system sucks. We need to get off of it. You need to get off these prescription drugs. You need to get away from the pharmaceutical companies. You need to disconnect yourself from the system. They will allow a voice like mine and others to be on here because it's a way for them to say, okay, well, let's see how many people are going to listen to him or how many people are going to listen to her. It's just a kind of way they can monitor. So they allow me to say something, knowing that they've already, because of how much investing they have done in black folks anyway, they know the chances are ain't nobody gonna have listened to him. Let's just watch and see. Let me see how many views he gonna get. Let's see how many people gonna look at all these people that are unsubscribing. Yep, that's right. Keep on talking, because ain't nobody listening to you, because we've already invested to make sure that people ain't really listening to you. But I guess it makes you feel good to get up here and do your videos. So it's just a way for them to kind of see if people are really listening or not. They're not, but if it's something that they felt that was really like, nope, you don't cross that line, trust and know they will shut you down really quick. But there's voices, make no mistake about it, there are voices that they will allow, but they simply allow it to see and to kind of measure where everybody is, and what I'm learning is that one of the ways that you can tell that you are leaving the matrix is really one of the ways is by the amount of followers you have, for real. Because when I tell you, you got people unsubscribing quite often from this channel, it's happening because we are challenging people to start digging and asking and demanding for the truth. And to do that, it's going to require something of you. And a lot of people, unfortunately, don't want to do that. And that's fine. And so when you're popular and when you're the it person, that's what the system loves. But I'm going to tell you, when you're leaving and coming out of this system, it's a lonely walk. It doesn't get more popular as you're walking out of it. It gets a lot more lonelier. It does. And that's something I want all of you to understand, that it gets even more lonely. It does. Your friends become few. That's when you're making your way to the door. So anyway, let's move on here. So they allow certain things to be on here just as a way to see where everybody is. But at the same time, they'll let you know too. They'll crack that whip if you get too close to the, if you get too close, if you're leading way too many people out the door, then there's some problem. And trust me, they'll let you know. All right, so now we're going to transition a little bit because we had to cover all of that to get to this point here. All right, we're about halfway through right now. Yeah, we're exactly halfway through. All right, so if you made it this far, congratulations. All right, so we're going to talk about this concept called loop. I'm calling loop life. Everything that we see in society today, now we're getting into, we talked about the investors. And now we're going to get more into the strategy of these investors and what their strategy is. Their strategy is to keep everything that they control in its own loop. That's their strategy. Well, they got that strategy first and foremost, I think, from something like this. This is the Congo, or some people say the Bakongo cosmogram. And you see how it goes, right? If you start, you see my mouse here, it starts conception. Then there's a lot of layers to this. I'm just giving you the basics, okay? I'm not going to delve deep into this, all right? You can, there are plenty of videos on here that really can break down all the different meanings of the Congo cosmogram, but I'm just showing you. So it starts at conception, springtime, then it goes to birth, so when you're conceived in your mama, right? Then when you're actually born, that's summertime. Then maturity, that's fall. And then winter, that is death. And like I said, again, and then it just goes on. I think this represents the highest spiritual point or something like this right here. And then it goes again, conception, birth. So nature in of itself, what we can pull out is, like I said, again, this is extremely basic look at the Congo cosmogram. Very, very basic. Okay. So, but what we can get out of this from a basic view is that even when we look at nature in of itself is one big cycle. You have the 4 seasons, right? And then it starts all over again. All right. Our lives is basically one big cycle. We're conceived, we birth, we come to a place of maturity, and then you die, but life cycle continues over and over again, and nature is no different. And the one that created all of this controls all of this. It's an order. It's nothing disorder about this. If you want to bet on something, you bet on this right here, because it's always going to happen. Summer is always going to come. Fall's going to come after that. Winter's going to come after that. Then spring's going to come after that. It's always going to happen. Everything's, when it comes to nature, it's on its cycle. And the one that created all of this controls all of it. Well, then you have wicked people who've looked at that and said, well, that's interesting. Let's create our own cycles. So you got cycles for all these things and more. I just kind of pulled a bunch of them out, and we'll just go through examples of each. Okay. So religion, culture, economics, politics, food, health, education. So let's talk about these real quick. Okay. So religion, for example, it's one big loop. It really is. It doesn't matter what religion you're in. When you first get in, there's always enlightenment. You're excited and all that stuff. Then it gets to a point where you're just kind of like at the pinnacle of where your knowledge or whatever. But then all of a sudden after that, you'll start seeing some discrepancies. Things won't start adding up, then you start asking questions. And then you get to a place where you start asking too many questions. And then at that point, what happens? Then you get pushed out. You know what I'm saying? And then if you're talking in Christendom, you may experience this whole cycle within a church. So what happens? You move to another church where you go through the same thing again. And these cycles or these loops, some of these loops, they can go for years. So that's religion. That's what you'll see. And then it doesn't matter if you go like us, we went from Christianity to, let's say, in the Hebrew space. It's the same thing. We thought we were going to get into something else. We thought we were getting out of a loop. No, we went from one loop to another. And we saw the same similarities. It follows the same thing. Culture, again, culture in of itself is a loop. It's one big loop. You're only going to stay if you are dedicated, if you're part of a particular culture. And this is this culture one can actually bleed into a lot of these other things that you see on the screen here. But culture in of itself is one big group. Now, I'll talk about this one a little bit. Because this one, we're going to put a pause on that. I mean, not a pause. I'm going to come back to that one. All right. Because I have a couple of slides down where I'll really get into culture and what I mean by that. Okay. So we'll talk about that. Economics, I kind of talked about that already. In other words, each group, investors or visionaries, or we're going to learn later, storytellers, they have already got, when it comes to economics, they already know pretty much projected where certain groups are going to be in the next 10, 50, 100 years. And they invest just like that. All right. So they're going to make sure that you stay on track, that you'll never come out of that particular loop, and we can look at, the collective of Black folks over the past 100 years, and still we're lagging. What does that mean? That means we stayed on a particular track that was designed for us by the creators of this system. All right, let's move on to politics. Same thing. You vote for an individual that's pumping you up, gassing you up, telling you that if you vote for him or her, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and all that stuff. And then what happens? Once they get elected, then the same stuff happens. They forget about you. And then right at the last minute, when it's campaign season, then they come around again and gas you up and say, hey, listen, I could have done this, but the other side wouldn't let me. Give me another chance and I'll get the job done. And then you give them another chance and you vote them in, and guess what happens? It's the same thing. And then once they get out the second term and once they leave office, now all of a sudden they don't know you. You know what I'm saying? And then you got to wait for the next person to come in, and then the cycle goes all over again, right? Food, the way food is designed in our culture. Food is designed to be addictive. It's designed, they put a lot of salt. They put a lot of sugars in there. They put a lot of addictive ingredients in there to get you to come back so that you can continue to eat like what they want you to eat. Like, this American system is about making business. It's about business. It is about business. It's not about preservation of your health, which is the next one. It's about business. So if I come up with a taco that has bacon and cheese and all these ingredients that's very addictive, I'm going to come out with it Because if my business, if I'm trying to build a business where what I sell, it has a high probability that you're going to come back and eat it again. Well, forget that. I ain't thinking about your health. I'm thinking about how can I get you back through the door. So I'm going to invest in things that's going to make my food addictive enough for you to come back in. And I'm not prioritizing your health. I'm about the addiction. It's like a dealer, drug dealer. You know what I'm saying? So food in this culture, in this society, is designed for you to come back and to stay in this cycle, right? Where you never break the cycle and you say, you know what? Enough is enough. Forget all this. I'm going to start growing my own food. There's nothing in this culture, in this American culture, that is promoting you, encouraging you to go and grow your own food. No, they want you to buy from them and them only. And that's why the food that they give you is designed to keep you on that loop. Health is the same way. We can look at health and that, all these kind of connect to each other. Health, same thing. You go to the doctors. Let's say you got a flu, you got a cold or something like that. What's the doctor going to do? He's going to recommend, they're going to recommend you some pharmaceuticals. They give you that, and those pharmaceuticals have side effects. Those side effects start manifesting itself. Then you're like, doc, now all of a sudden I got 3 eyes now. What do I have to do to get rid of this third eye? Okay, well, we got something for you. Go to this doctor across town. He specializes in eye removal. So he's going to take that eye out and he's going to patch it up. Well, the doctor he sends you to that eye removal doctor, pops out that eye, seals up your head. Now you got your 2 eyes back. But however, the medication that he gave you for the healing process, now that's got its own side effects. So now you got to go through a whole nother thing. So the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry is designed to keep you on a loop. It's not designed for you to say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm done with this. Let me start my own situation. It's not designed for that. Education is the same thing. You go to education, you think education is designed for you to become the greatest person ever? No, it's designed for you to stay on a track where you get your papers. You go to high school, middle school, elementary, middle, high school, you go to college and you go through all that. And if you want to get, and then you get to a certain point in your career, well, guess what? You got to go back and get more education in that system. And it's just keeping you on this never ending loop. All right. When you look at, when we talk about black or schools that in the black community, talking about public school system, and we wonder why education is so much lower. Well, there's a lot of reasons. We can talk about that. But the system itself isn't designed to produce a bunch of high IQ individuals. It's not designed by that. Like I said, again, there's a lot of things we can point to, but the system in of itself isn't designed for that. It's designed to keep you in this never ending loop. So when you start looking at life in of itself, everything that you're part of, it is you, you are part of a loop. One way or the other, you're part of a loop. What you name, you can control. What you name, you can control. And this goes back what I was saying earlier, coming up with all of these things. Religion. So if you call yourself a Hebrew, you're on the Hebrew loop. If you call yourself a Seventh-day Adventist, you're on the Seventh-day Adventist loop. If you call yourself black, you're on the black loop. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But first, let's go back here. We're going to look at a little bit of history here. All right. What you name, you control. Now, you got 2 images here. On the left-hand side, you see, there was a time where, birth certificates, they used to say Negro. Some of y'all also remember birth certificates, they used to say colored on there, right? All of these terminologies. Let me ask you something. When you were born, when you came out of your mother, did you come out of your mom and say, hey, I'm black, I'm a Negro, I'm a colored baby? Did you come out of your mama saying that? Declaring that you're a black individual? Did you come out of your mama saying that you colored? Did you come out of your mother saying that you were a Negro? Did you come out of your mother and said that you was an African American? Every one of those labels that I just gave you, this system gave that to you. Now, this is going to mess with some of y'all. The only thing you knew, you was able to comprehend, if you will, was that you were a live being when you came out of your parent, when you came out of your mother. Yeah, let me be clear with that. You came out of your mother, not birthing parent. We don't do that here, okay? When you came out of your mother, the only thing you was aware of is the fact that you were a live being. That's it. It was the system that produced a sheet of paper and said, you're black. It was the system that came out with a sheet of paper and said, you're colored. It was the system that came out with a sheet of paper and said that you're African American. They put that label on you. See, where we going with this is that you got to see yourself even beyond just a title. I think one of the worst things we could have done on ourselves as a people is saying, I'm black and I'm proud. And you're going to see I think it's the next slide. You're going to see, the next slide. You're going to see exactly what I'm saying. Because I used to hear people talk like this a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, I know where you're going. You believe in color blindness stuff. No. We ain't going there with that. But I want to take you back to when you was first born again. When you were first, not born again, but when you were first born. When you were first born, you didn't come out with any labels. You didn't know nothing about no labels. You just knew you was a being. That's all you knew. And the moment you came out, they was like colored, Negro, black, African American. Why did they do that? What you name, you control. I hope you'll follow me on this, okay? So let's go back to this slide and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about here. Okay, so you remember this thing here in Negro land. And you got a lot of people out here saying, yeah, we're the Negroes. We're the Negroes. Well, do you know that the word Negro, that's not a word that we came up with? Let's read it. It says the word Negro originates from the Latin word Niger. I'm going to say Niger. It's probably something else. But anyway, which means black. The term entered the English language through Spanish and Portuguese during the colonial period. In Spanish, Negro simply means black, and it was used to describe people of African descent due to their skin color. The word became widely used in English-speaking countries, particularly during the time of the transatlantic slave trade, to refer to the black people. Listen to what this is saying here. So you had Spanish and Portuguese people. Both of these people enslaved you. The Spanish and Portuguese, they called you. They didn't call themselves that. They called you black, which means that they themselves were not. Our people, black folks, will fight over, oh no, the Portuguese, they were all black. They were all. Now you have some that had darker skin, but they did not see themselves as Negroes. They saw themselves as Spanish and Portuguese, and they saw you as different. Now, what's interesting is when you look at this part of the map, well, no, I won't say that because I'm looking at the map now, but yeah, this whole section, this is Upper West Africa, because I'm looking at the map now. I was getting ready to say something, but because it's not too far up, because I was thinking this was the top of Africa, but it's not. It's near the top, but it's not. So you got like New Guinea, what they call New Guinea, like you got Ghana and all that stuff around there. Those people are dark like us, right? For the most part. And so but if you go up above this area that they call Negro land, no, those people had lighter skin. And to this day, they still do. But my point is, they called you Negro. And when they called you Negro, they enslaved you. So this is a slave terminology. Let's read it. Let's continue on. It says, over time, the term Negro became associated with the racial classifications and social hierarchies of colonial and post-colonial societies. In the mid-20th century, as the civil rights movement gained momentum, the term began to be seen as outdated and offensive by many. It was gradually replaced by terms such as Black and African American in the United States, which are considered more respectful and reflective of the cultural and ethnic identities of people of African descent. So they came up with that. All right. Now let's go a little bit deeper than this. The term Bantu as a classification for a group of people in Africa was introduced by 19th century European linguists and anthropologists. The word Bantu itself comes from the Zulu word for people, Abantu, which means people. In many Bantu languages, with Intu meaning person. So hold on for a second. So here you got this whole group of people here that they're just calling, oh, they're just the people. They're just the people. We're gonna call them people. Well, let's go through this because we're revisiting this. If anything, I'll take a clip like this and make it his own video. So listen where we're going to go here. One of the most notable figures of this context was Wilhelm Bleek, a German linguist and philologist, hope I'm saying that right, who worked in South Africa. Bleek, along with his contemporaries, used the term Bantu to categorize a large group of languages. Back up. To do what? To categorize. To categorize. If I'm putting things in categories, what is my intention? To control it. To categorize a large group of languages spoken in Central, Eastern, and Southern Africa, recognizing that these languages shared a common linguistic features. Over time, the term Bantu came to be used not only to refer to the languages, but also to the people who spoke them. The classification, was based on the linguistic similarities rather than the ethnic or cultural considerations. And it included a vast and diverse range of communities. Today, the term Bantu is still used in linguistic and anthropological contexts, though it is important to recognize the diversity and individuality of many of the groups and cultures that fall under this classification. Now, let's take our time here for just a moment on there. So here you had this anthropologist, Wilhelm Bleek, who basically came across a group of black folks in Africa, a group of people that was darker than him, and he noticed some similarities in their language. And he said, I'm trying to figure out how to categorize these people. And then he goes to the Zulus and says, hey, Zulu people, I don't even know. I'm seeing this. I don't know. I tell you what's the word that you have for the Zulu word that you have for the people? Bantu. Okay, that's what I'm going to call them. I'm going to call them Bantu. So they took all of these people, like that write-up said, they have a vast different backgrounds and they have their own unique cultures and all that stuff. And what this person did was looped all of these people together in one big group and said, these are all the same people. How sloppy can you be with that? So there's this movement that we have, unfortunately, where our people, and to a measure, I've done this too, where you believe that all of these people are all supposed to be all linked together. Where does that come from? Where did that originate from? That originated from a white man by the name of Wilhelm Bleek. That didn't come from your Bible. That came from Bleek. He defined that. He defined who the people were. Because he couldn't come up with any other name. He just said, well, they share some things in their language, so we're just going to call them all the people. That's like me trying to loop, French and Spanish people together. There's some similarities in their language, but we recognize that there are some very distinct differences between people who are French and people who are Spanish. Some very distinct differences. But these Europeans, when they came to Africa, they just were very sloppy and just dumped us all in one big soup. But what some of our people, what we teach is spiritually, we're all supposed to be together as Bantu. Where you get that from? That didn't even come from your Bible. That comes from Bleak. Bleak said that. Bleak laid the groundwork for that. But why did he lay the groundwork for this? Because he was a forerunner in coming in to help categorize what they were going to ultimately control, or what they were already controlling. That's why they came up with that. They said, okay, well, I'm going to categorize everything here. I'm going to put all the A's here. I'm going to put all the B's here. I'm going to put all the C's here. I'm going to put all the D's here so that, so we got everything organized and structured so that we can control it. There was nothing spiritual about that. It was all about how to control this continent. And the fact that and I'm including myself, I've done it as well. We think that somehow there's some spiritual connection with all of that simply because Bleak defined it. That shows you how far off we really are and how disconnected we really are. It really does when you think about it. Because even all of these people who fall under Bleak's categorization called the Bantu, they never called themselves Bantu. The word Bantu simply means the people. If I'm if I'm speaking to a Spanish person, what does person's mean? What do people persona? That's like me going in. That's like me going in Central South America, and I identify a bunch of groups of people here. And I'm like, well, they all speak Spanish, but they're like, there's slightly differences in their language, but they're all still speaking Spanish. What can I call them? Personas. Okay, I'll call them personas. The personas. It's the same thing. How crazy is that? But this is what they pulled in Africa. But why did they do that? Because it was a very sloppy way for them to say, okay, we're trying to control we just gonna throw all these people in one big group because this is ultimately we're trying to control these folks, and that's why we're categorizing them. All right, let's move on to the next slide here. I told y'all this is going to be kind of lengthy here, and I appreciate y'all for hanging in there. All right, we getting somewhere. Okay, I have some video clips too. I'm going to be playing shortly. So, okay, so why did they create these categories? Because they created these categories as a way to control. This is for them to control. So African American has a script. Negro had a script. Colored had a script. Black has a script. Let's kind of give some quick examples here. Let's go to Negro. I think we'll start with Negro, then we go to colored, and I think it's African American, and now it's black. Okay, so Negro, for example, if you consider yourself or you identify as a Negro, there was a mentality that people who identified as a Negro carried in that time. All right, like a Negro, there was a certain mentality that you had to have. You couldn't look at white people in the face. You can't look at them in the eye. There was a mindset that it was severely, you were a person that did not see yourself as a human being. And you had to accept that. You had to accept your low station in life. And I would say the same thing with colored. Colored, and it had both of these things had their own script. Colored was a little bit better, but it still was pretty much the same thing. You're not like everybody else in the sense of human. Okay. So they had a whole narrative around Negro. They had that was designed around the word Negro. They had a whole narrative designed around colored, people who identified as colored. And then now you start moving into African American. Well, they had a whole narrative for African American. And that was a time when people start calling themselves Afro or African American, we were starting to identify with our African roots. However, it was still somewhat controlled. In other words, we'll allow you to do it. Well, like, I was sharing this with my wife. We mentioned Queen Latifah, for example. For those of you who remember Queen Latifah back in the day when she was rapping. Now, she was very much a person that was repping Africa, right? But you see how that played out. I mean, now she's an actress and she's doing everything else now, singing jazz music and all this stuff. But that whole stage that she was going through, it was just her just passing through. So it was a controlled message. It's like, we'll allow you to give a shout out to Africa, but it ain't going to go nowhere. And we're going to make sure that anybody that's repping this publicly, they ain't going nowhere. So they have narratives and scripts designed just for people who accepted that in their mindset. When you accept the names that they give you, you are accepting the role. I hope I'm making sense. And now we're in Black, which is a hodgepodge of all of this. Afro, African-American, Negro, colored. And then Black is just a hodgepodge of all this. So now we're in the era. This is why they keep pushing people of color. We're in the era of people of color. And that falls under Black. So now what the script says for Black folks is you need to accept not just your Blackness, but also that you have dark skin. Now we're just trying to herd you in to this whole melting pot of Black and people that got darker skin than white people. We're just trying to herd you all into that. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hope you get what I'm saying. You see how Black is just, it's a catch-all. That can be anything. But you see how then they have a script for each one. And they design things around that. All right? Same thing with, whatever religion you or belief system. If you're Moor, they got a script for that. A Hebrew, there's a script for that. Native American, you want to claim that you're a Black Indian or Black Native American, whatever. There's a script for that. You think you can just come up with stuff and think, no. What you name is what they control. What they name is what they control. So any of these things you come up with, they already have a script for it. So a lot of times when people ask me like, okay, so what are you now? Or what do you call yourself now? What do you believe now? I said, I'm telling you, well, right now I'm trying to get rid of these lies out here. But as far as assigning a title to myself, no, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not signing. I don't need a title. What's the name of the God that you serve now? It's like this angst. It's not angst. It's like this anxiety that you got to know. I got to have a title. I got to have a name tag for myself because I can't go up in here and I ain't got a name tag. When are they going to call me? They ain't going to call on me ever if I don't have a name tag or if I don't. What's the name of the God that you serve? It's like you got to have this thing. In other words, if you don't have any meaning or purpose. Well, that's not really a bad thing in the sense that if I'm not recognized by this system, well, that's kind of where I'm trying to go to. That's the direction where I'm trying to go because what they name is what they control. You think you can call yourself whatever these things aren't names out here and you think they ain't controlling it already? They already got a script for it already. But when you begin to reject the titles, when you begin to reject the gods and the goddesses that they give you, now all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute now. Well, we don't have a script for this now. What's up now? It doesn't mean that you're confused. I'm not confused at all. I'm just no longer going to accept what they give me and go along with it. I'm not playing their game anymore. You understand what I'm saying? Let's move on. And I said here, even your last name, when you were born, you just knew that you were a being. That's all. But automatically they you got slapped on with a last name. Most of our people in the African diaspora, we have the last names of the slave masters. And this is the system's attempt to keep you in a certain state. Every time you say Jackson, every time you say Johnson, every time you say Peterson or whatever, you are literally calling out the people that enslaved you. It's meant to get into you psychologically that you are always someone that will be owned by the system. This is why Malcolm X did what he did. He said, I'm going to take my name off and put X back there. Now, I ain't telling you to do that, but you understand why he did that. You understand? All right, let's go. Now, the ultimate goal, and we're transitioning a little bit now, a little bit more too. The ultimate goal is, again, is about control, right? And so we're seeing today, you know, they're wanting, like I was saying a little bit earlier in this video, they're wanting to shut down basically humans, and they want to replace humans with their own creations, right? And they're doing that now. So this is something I just saw recently, and this is sperm counts are down worldwide, and researchers are discovering why. And if you read some of the article, it goes in and talks about how there's a growing amount of plastics and other things that they're finding in men's genitalia that's been collecting thanks to the environment and foods and stuff like that. And they're purposely putting this stuff in there to do that kind of stuff here. Here's a quick example here of something else that's happening. Home Depot is using secret AI technology at self-checkouts to catch shoplifters. In short, basically, why you need security officers when you can have a technology in place right now in Home Depots where the cameras follow all their customers and they can tell whether or not if they're trying to steal something or not. And Target is doing the same thing. Okay. And I know for some of you, I'm like, well, that was a quick, I know that was kind of a transition there, right? But the reason I had to, hopefully this is kind of building on one thing. The whole goal is to control. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's why I switched to AI. So you can see now that, okay, they've gotten all the information they need to collect from you. And so now they're transitioning to the next level, which is AI technology, right? So that's why I'm just touching on this briefly. And in this next these couple of slides, you're going to see how is when they get us as a people to accept the role that they have assigned to us, then it makes for a better transition to where they're trying to take people ultimately. All right. So you're going to see it here. And I said, if you want to make a case for AI surveillance, encourage the fools in society to shoplift by changing the laws. The citizens will eventually get angry enough where they will be begging for a surveillance state. And then I said, they literally turned cities like San Francisco into one big ad for AI. And if you haven't been following, of course, there's been video clip after video clip after video clip of many of our people, unfortunately, that are taking advantage of these laws that they've changed throughout California, particularly in San Francisco, where they have these no chase laws. But it's not just California, but it's in other states too. And it doesn't make any sense. They're saying that, listen, as long as it's like $500 or less, you're powerless. You can't do anything. Anybody can come in and grab as much as they want, and then they can leave. And we're not going to do anything about it. And we're going to also defang our police and tell them don't do anything about it. Now, that doesn't make any sense when you first think about it, right? But ultimately, what's the ultimate plan? You always got to ask why. What's the why behind that? That makes no sense. The why is they want to create an environment, an atmosphere where the citizenry gets so angry to where they begin to demand for technology to come in to stop all of this. What's that technology? AI. You start automating different things. But in order to get there, you got to convince a group of people that you have told most of their lives that they are monsters, they are valueless, they are baseless, they are thieves, they are robbers, they're crooks, they're villains. And once our people accept that role, then they say, okay, we're going to use you for this to make a case to bring in our next technology. You see how that works? And this is another example of how they're bringing in the technology as I'm trying to click on this thing here. They got this thing called Speedy Eats. I saw this the other day, and this is basically, it's a trailer, and you use your app, you use the app on your phone, and you can order barbecue chicken, you can get pizza, you can get sandwiches, you can get drinks or whatever, and you do it all on your phone. Nobody needs to be up in here at all, except to check on and make sure everything's cool, but that's it. There's other technology that they're incorporating right now where people are being removed completely out of the picture. This is just one example here. In this next clip, you're going to see, we're not going to play the whole thing. Now, when it even comes to interviews, you don't even need to have a human being present. I'm going to play a few minutes of this, and I want you to take a listen. Check it out.
All right, let's get started with the interview.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for joining me today. I'm Alex, and I'll be conducting your interview. I'm excited to get started. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Hey, Alex, it's nice to meet you. My name is Aaron. I studied computer science at Brown University. I'm really passionate about software engineering and all things data science related. So really excited to again get started here.
That's great to hear, Aaron. It sounds like you have a solid background for this role. Let's dive into some questions. This position is in person, so you would come into the London office. Are you able to work in London?
I'm a dual citizen of the United States and the UK, so I don't think that'll be an issue for me.
That's fantastic, Aaron. It sounds like working in London won't be a problem for you at all. Let's move.
Okay, so I don't have to play the rest of it. It's about 6 minutes long. But anyway, what this clip demonstrates is the fact that you don't need people anymore. They've extracted the information they need from these groups that they've been controlling all of these years, and now they're building what they really want. Again, this is going back to what I was saying earlier, is that America is a corporation first. It is not about building a culture. Explain the culture of an AI bot. It's an AI bot talking about demanding for certain holidays? No. Is an AI bot demanding for reparations? No. AI bots demanding that certain foods are cooked at a certain day? No, they're not demanding any of that. You can completely control it. And that's why they had to spend all of this time establishing these loops so that they can control you and they can get more information out of you so that they can get to this point where Aaron now is being interviewed by an AI bot. That's ultimately where this is going. Okay. Now, one more turn on this ride that we've been on in this video here. And I know we've been taking different turns, but this is just things that I want you to really think about. Let's get to this here. So investors, going back to what we were talking about earlier, are really the storytellers. Okay, you remember we said earlier in the broadcast, we talked about how investors really are true investors, are really concerned and invested in the ideas that they want to relay or project on the greater society. You understand what I'm saying? And that's the people, so that's really what their goal is. Their goal isn't, I want to get all this money so I can show you how many cars I have or how many houses I have or how many gold chains or whatever, sneakers or whatever it is. They don't care about all of that. They want to control the narrative. They want to control the story of what it is that they ultimately, or who it is they ultimately want to control. And I've referred to this article many times. This is Joe Stein, Who Runs Hollywood. Come on. And in the article, basically, he's proudly admitting that much of Hollywood is ran by his people. Okay, I don't need to read the article aloud, but you pretty much get the idea. It's in the LA Times. It's right there. This is from a video clip. This is from the documentary Hollywoodism, Jews, Movies, and the American Dream. I want you to listen to what he is saying as a Jewish person, okay, and what they're really about. All right. Now, this is his words. All right. Let's take a listen.
They created their own America, an America which is not the real America. It's their own version of the real America. But ultimately, this shadow America becomes so popular and so widely disseminated that its images and its values come to devour the real America. And so the grand irony of all of Hollywood is that Americans come to define themselves by the shadow America that was created by Eastern European Jewish immigrants who weren't admitted to the precincts of the real America.
Yeah, he said it. So Hollywood in of itself is basically a dream factory. When we talk about the American dream, it's really a dream that was put together by his people. And he's admitting to this. These are the controllers that we're talking about. All right, let's move on. Okay. Now what you're looking at right now is we're going to talk about advertising, because it's not just Hollywood per se, but we got to look at these other entities that help steer society as a whole, this American dream. We got to look at the people who control this American dream, and their responsibility is to constantly project this dream to the population that they ultimately want to control. All right. And so here, what you're looking at is the top 4. I think this is as of 2022 or 2023. I can't remember right now, but the top 4 advertisers, major advertisers, and they're listed right here. Okay, this is the most recent list I was able to get: WPP, Omnicom, IPG, and Publicis Group. All right, and on the right hand side, we're not going to read the whole. Well, maybe we will. Advertising's big 4. It's their world. All right. Now this is written back in 2002. But it's still applicable to a degree. I think one of these have the 4 that they identified. I don't know if I think it's changed a little bit, but the general gist I want you to get. It says college basketball isn't the only American institution with a showdown amongst its final 4. When the Publicis Group, based in Paris, completes its $3 billion acquisition of BCom 3 Group, probably in June, the advertising industry will narrow down to 4 giant agency companies: the Omnicom Group and the Interpublic Group of companies of New York, the WPP Group of London, and Publicis. That together will soak up more than half of the industry's revenue this year. They also will control much of the world's ad spending, as well as significant shares of many other businesses like direct mail marketing, in-store promotion, and public relations. Besides dominating commercial speech, a $500 billion a year industry, these 4 agency companies and men who run them, and they name the people right here, also hold incredible sway over the media by deciding when and where to spend their clients' ad budgets. They can indirectly set network television schedules and starve magazines to death or help them to flourish. Now, I want you to understand that what I just read to you. This is how much power. Now, this is written back in 2002. So this has drastically changed since then, meaning that they even got more power. So this is how much power these 4 top ad agencies have over the world of advertising. Okay. And what's advertising? It's telling a story. All right. And it's a tool to also control the narrative of the group or the groups that you're targeting. Now, when you look at the founders of these groups, you're going to find a similarity. And you know what the bottom line is. Martin Sorrell of WPP. And then this one, I didn't feel like getting all the pictures of these individuals. But let's just say most of them are all part of the same family, if you know what I mean. Felipe Krakowski. Yep. He's one of them people. Publicis Group. Marcel Bluestein. Same thing. They're all part of the same group. Going back to what this guy said, let's play his clip again. Let's play it again because I want to make sure you're getting it now, okay?
They created their own America, an America which is not the real America. It's their own version of the real America. But ultimately, this shadow America becomes so popular and so widely disseminated that its images and its values come to devour the real America. And so the grand irony of all of Hollywood is that Americans come to define themselves by the shadow America that was created by Eastern European Jewish immigrants who weren't admitted to the precincts of the real America.
I told you that. Now, I did this slide a while back. We talked about these ad agencies, a lot of these ad agencies. If you've ever seen the show Mad Men, it's very clear that Mad Men basically this was Jews. They ran a lot of the when we talk about Fifth Avenue, you know, the advertising agencies and stuff. A lot of those advertising agencies, even during the time when you look at these old ads and you see how black people were portrayed as mammies and, you know, and people in blackface, it was them. They had control over that. See, they don't want to talk about that. And there's actually books on this. You got to look for it. But there's actually books on this where they're actually admitting that they took part in the portrayal of how we looked in ads, in newspapers and magazines and on TV. They were the ones that were controlling that. Telling our story. This is when we were told to identify ourselves as Negroes, as colored. And because many of us accepted those titles, this is how the narrative was being portrayed to the rest of the world. Are you following what I'm saying to you? When you accept their titles, it comes with their portrayals. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you accept their title of Negro, if you accept their title of black or whatever, they're going to portray that out on the big screen, on the small screen, in the magazine, in whatever. Because it's a script. They got a script. They got a whole package deal for Negro. They had a whole package deal for colored. They had a whole package deal for African American, and they got one for black right now. And like I said, the package, the script that they have for black is including people of color and all this other stuff because they just trying to blend everybody together. And you're gonna see that in a moment where that comes from. They did that. And then you had, and unfortunately, you had even black folks, and this is coming from for the black publications that we had, like Johnson & Johnson. Shame on them big time, because Johnson & Johnson was pushing colorism very hard. And this should never be forgotten. The fraternities and sororities that took place in this, I ain't never going to forgive them for that. Never. Because they'll never come out and admit that they took part in this stuff. Magazines where the ads in the magazines were bleaching cream. See, a lot of times people here, you know, black people here, we want to call out Africans or people in the Caribbean and say, oh, you taking that cake soap and trying to brighten your skin and all that stuff up. But nobody wants to bring this stuff up. We were the ones that were green lighting the whole bleaching your skin and all that stuff. That started over here. We did that. We got to take responsibility for that. So now, hopefully now you're starting to understand where is this trend really coming from of this interracial stuff that we've been seeing now. It's really interesting. Why is this trend being pushed, this interracial trend where we're seeing a lot of times it's white men with black women? Why do we always see that in most cases? Or in some cases, it's the other way around. And you're going to find out in a moment why they're doing that. But it also, they also fuel this in porn. All right. And I ain't going to show too much on that, you know, but you got people like Lansky right here that basically he is one that really has been pushing this whole narrative. And this is a slide I did a while back, heavily invested in these are different. What you're looking at right now, these are different genres of pornography that focus on interracial. You see all these genres here? They got genres. It ain't just one. There's genres. These people are heavily invested in making sure that black folks are sexualizing white people and vice versa. They are heavily invested in this. Now, this is an article I came across here, and it says Americans see more interracial relationships in advertising. This was written in 2021. Let's read this section here that I pulled out. It says, while interracial ads may reflect an increasingly diverse America becoming more of a melting pot, they are not a mirror on society, according to Morgan State University professor Jason Johnson, who is currently doing research on interracial advertising. Johnson notes that 70% of interracial commercials from the past 4 years show a white man with a black woman. The reality, he said, is a black man with a white woman is more common in America, and he's right with that. He said such ads are not directed just towards interracial consumers, and that many still cater to racial biases and narrow comfort zones. Ads showing a white man with a black woman are soothing to white people because it makes them more comfortable than seeing black man with a white woman. He's right. All right. Johnson said progress may be incomplete, but I can't say that name. I don't know. They said predicts Americans will start to see even more biracial couples in advertising, and that over time you might find less commentary on it as it becomes the norm. Now, let me stop here for a second again and just say this. Typically, when you are focused on, so like what Johnson just said, and he's absolutely right. One of the things that used to puzzle me for the longest time, I said, why are they so invested in showing these interracial couples? I'm not angry. I'm not mad at interracial couples. If that's you, that's you. I ain't mad at you. But for someone who has spent years in marketing, like not like I'm marketing by myself, but I've actually worked in the area of marketing, right? And then I did it. Now I'm doing it for our own businesses. But it always used to puzzle me. Why are they so heavily invested in this particular pushing this narrative out? It's got to be more than that. It's got to be more than just money. In other words, it's like this. Do you have a demographic of people who like Dungeons and Dragons? Yes. Okay, so we should be seeing a lot of ads for people in Dungeons and Dragons, right? Well, no, not exactly. Why? Well, if you look at how much money they bring to the table, it's probably not enough to do the advertising campaigns towards people like that. You understand what I'm saying? But if you're doing advertising, let's say towards but in this case, if you were to do a side-by-side comparison between the economics of people who are in interracial marriages or relationships versus same racial relationships, it's probably going to be pretty much the same. So it's not like if you look at the money, the income of interracial couples, I doubt pretty seriously it's significantly high enough to validate them spending so much money into advertising and pushing interracial things. So what that tells me is there's something more to this. There's something more to this story. Why are they doing that? And that's what we're going to get into. All right. And we're almost done here. All right. So let me pull this up here. And so you see the people who are behind these ad agencies, right? So we already talked about that. Now we're going to get into the, same thing in the movies, right? The four biggest agencies, talent agencies are listed right here. Sensor Creative Arts Agency, Acquired International Creative Management. The big four talent agencies are CAA, ICM, William Morris Endeavor, and United Talent Agency have become the big three. The following list okay, and then it goes on. All right. So that was as of 2023. Let's move on here. And so if you look at the founders of each one of these things, they belong to the same group of people. So what that means is that these four agencies pretty much control all narratives that you see in all movies in all commercials, in everything. They control the narrative. So when you look at a movie and you're wondering, why is this in there? Why is that in there? Why are they pushing it? These are the individuals that control that. And they control who gets into those movies. They control that. The same people. This tiny minority of people, they wield this much power in deciding the narratives that we see in these movies and ads and even on radio, for that matter. And they're going to promote, again, going back all the way what we said at the beginning, they're going to promote their narratives, what they want to see in whatever particular group that the target is, that they're targeting, right? Now, some of y'all know, heard of this young lady here, Teresa Johnson, all right? Risa Tisa. Well, she signed with CAA. They jumped on her real quick. Now, from a business standpoint, I see why they did that, because number one, she came up with first of all, the amount of people that were following her, and number two, her ability to keep these people engaged. This young lady came out with over 50 short TikTok videos, and people were hanging on their chairs for the next one. Well, that's gold for advertisers. You know what I mean? And for anybody that wants to invest in that. But let's look at this a little bit deeper. Okay, now, if you listen to everything she's been saying, I'm talking about Johnson, what she's been saying, she said, hey, listen, my goal to do this is to really, she want to let people know, hey, listen, you are of worth, you are of value, and you don't have to subject yourself to, mess or whatever, right? I'm just speaking for the general public who do know Risa Tisa. Basically, she was married to, from what it sounds like, a crazy lunatic kind of dude that took advantage of her, right? Basically, that's what took place, right? And so anyway, she has this thing. The theme of all her videos is who the blank did I just marry? But what it highlights is black dysfunction between black men and black women. Do you understand what I'm saying? I understand what her purpose was in talking about this openly. I'm not telling her, I'm not saying she shouldn't, but what I'm trying to point out is it's interesting that that the people that I showed on that previous slide would get behind someone that's highlighting black dysfunction. But there's many black folks out here that are putting out some good content that's promoting black marriage, that's promoting, families coming together, that's promoting entrepreneurship. Are they getting behind people like that? No. Anything that reflects their agenda, messiness, arguing, tearing down, all that stuff, that's what they're going to get behind, because they are telling their story through our experience. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the sad thing is, many of our people are clamoring to be used to have their stories of personal abuse, personal damage, and they're begging these people to please use me, sir, so that you can tell your story through my pain. You see that? You see how crazy that is? But that's what's happening. And then I showed you this real quick here. All of these different a lot of these black individuals here have signed with this 170 industry leaders signed unity statement to launch Black Jewish Entertainment Alliance. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's a one-way street. So all of these actors and different black media folks, they signed basically an agreement that we're going to be at peace with one another. But just two examples, these are two individuals that were signed on the list. Nick Cannon, you remember, he just said one little thing, and then all of a sudden now he's taking a trip down to the Wissenhall Center so that he can be re-educated. And then Terry Crews had this individual basically grab him in the crotch. And again, and this individual is also part of them folks. But yet they signed a unity statement. Anyway, let me move on, because I don't want to get started with these folks. Anyway, so what's their driving factor? All right. I got this slide, and then I got my final slide, and then I'm done. This organization is called HIAS, forgot what that stands for. And if you want to put that in the comment section, that'll be great. If not, whatever. But basically, it's an immigration organization that's ran by Jewish people. And what they focus on is going to these other countries and pushing immigration to these other countries, except Israel. Gee, I wonder why they do that. So anyway, what I'm going to show you is this video here, because there are a lot of quotes. What's their driving factor? What's the story that these investors, these storytellers are really trying to tell? Where does it come from? Well, it comes from a much deeper place, and it is their belief system. It's their religion. Now, there are a lot of quotes that I was able to find that very conveniently fell in line with what we were presenting here. But I had to double and triple check to make sure that they were accurate, and they came up as questionable or not accurate at all. And I know with YouTube's AI, if they heard me repeating it, this whole video would have been shut down. So I said, nah, let me go even further then. Let me go to the people themselves and let them say it to you themselves. So this is a video compilation that someone put together, and then I found 2 videos and I basically spliced them together. And so it's a little bit longer. It's about a few minutes long. It's not even that really. And I want you to listen. This first one has subtitles on it, so hopefully you'll be able to see it. But then everyone else, they don't need subtitles. But I want you to hear for yourself why they are pushing this narrative. And then we're going to wrap this up all together. Okay. So let's take a listen and let's go.
Le Mashiach viendra que quand Édom, l'Europe, la chrétienté sera totalement tombée. Donc je vous pose la question, c'est une bonne nouvelle que l'islam envahisse l'Europe? C'est une excellente nouvelle, ça annonce l'envie de Mashiach. Excellente nouvelle. Vous allez le payer très cher, les Européens. Mais à un point, vous n'avez même pas notion de quoi on parle. Et vous n'aurez pas au fuir. Parce que tout le mal que vous avez fait à Israël, vous le paierez au centuple. Quand l'Italie disparaîtra, quand Édom, c'est pour ça que le QG de la chrétienté qui vient de Esav se trouve là-bas, quand cet endroit-là disparaîtra, et c'est ce que veut faire l'islam, il s'occupe. L'islam, c'est le balai d'Israël, sachez-le.
It's the end of days. You're going to need the iron of Esav, which represents Edom, which is the West, Europe, and the Americas, to get intermixed with Ishmael, which is basically Arabs and Muslims. How in the world was this ever going to happen if not for this refugee crisis? At the end of days, you're going to have this intermixing between Esav, Edom, which is the West, and the East, which is the Muslims and the Arabs, making this through this influx into the world. And they're going to have children, I don't want to say by the dozens, but they're going to have a far larger birth rate than the indigenous people there, and they're going to sort of conquer by number. And there are many different sources for this. One of them in Yehezkel, chapter 14, and many other sources as far as this is concerned, where it's mentioned very, very vividly what will happen to the Jews and what will happen to Yerushalayim and what will happen to the world at that time, where there will be many, many people killed and so on and so forth. So the idea of having these refugees come into Europe, it's no longer a matter of whether it's right or wrong. It's just simply a fulfillment of what it was meant to be all along. This is the fulfillment of the Hazal and the prophecies. This has to happen, and this is just another sign that we are nearing, the completion of this tikkun of the entire world.
This needs to be frankly admitted by Jews all over the world, that there are, without doubt, Jews involved in those movements and those organizations, very often NGOs, etc., who promote this phenomenon of third world immigration into the Western countries.
Okay, so you heard for yourself straight from them. I hope they don't get me on that music. I try to look for these videos that I don't know why I feel like they got to add the music on there. But you hear straight from them. So these controllers, these investors, these storytellers, they're part of the story that they're in right now is that they are promoting. Let's go back here because we're tying it all together now. The first step is to get you into your own separate loop. As you get people into their own, or I'll go back even further than that. Okay. So we talked about this loop thing. Okay. And our creator created this loop. It's just a way to control everything in creation, right? Now, these people, these wicked people, these powers that shouldn't be, create all of these different titles and groups and sections and put people in these different loops here as an easy way to control you, to keep you forever running in circles in these different groups, because it's an easy way for you to be controlled by them. All right. And they assign these different titles to you, and each title that they've assigned to you, there's a script associated with that title. It's just simply a way that you are controlled. And so a lot of times when you get on YouTube, the stuff that you see on YouTube, it's simply things that they are allowing because it's allowing the script to play out, including me, yours truly. They use people like me and others because as a way to see, we just want to make sure we're being effective, meaning that nobody's listening to you. But if a lot of people are listening to you, chances are you are more aligned with what they want to see. You understand what I'm saying? And they're going to promote that. So it goes both ways in how they do this. When you accept your role that they have assigned to you in their script, it lays the groundwork for the next step, which is basically eliminating you. And that's what they're doing right now with this AI technology. That's the next step, to eliminate jobs, to get rid of you, ultimately. We talked about that. Then we moved to this video here that talks about how they are acknowledging that they are the storytellers for all of America. And then we covered this as well, talking about the advertisers and how much sway they have over selling the American dream. And then we talked about the people in movies and every, any form of entertainment. Even I think in sports, to a degree, they control that as well. Everyone you see on TV, they're part of one of one of these groups here. And they appoint who the leaders are. Okay. Going back, what we kind of, to recap what we talked about here, we defined what, how insurance companies work, because that was just a very basic way of just leading up to this, which is an investor, and how true investors aren't really aren't thinking like this. They're thinking more how I can create a society that I can control. So what they do is they come out with systems, social media, as a way of collecting your data. And while they're collecting that data, at the same time, on the other hand, what they're doing is they're investing in different individuals and organizations that are going to steer the people that they are invested in the direction that they want them to go. All right. And we talked about, this whole thing about, Public Enemy. They were going too far off the rails and they had to shut them down. We emphasize how these individuals, how they have really studied you. They're not just marching or screaming. They have literally broken down your body to understand every part of you. They've done all kinds of experiments to understand how to build you up, how to gas you up, how to get you excited, and how to let you down, what breaks you. And right now, what part of the black script, I'm a black American, we're very heavy on representation. That's something we really want to see, is representation. And that is something that we're settled on. We're settled on being represented. But that ain't panning out too well. We talked about all these different movements that we see on social media. The reason why they're powerless is because they are allowed. If they were really doing something, they would not be on these plantations, on these platforms. But they're not. If they were doing something where they were literally raising up real armies, trust and know they would not be on these platforms at all. The ones that they're allowing, they're using they're mainly using everyone that's on these platforms as a way to kind of monitor where the people are and to make sure that, okay, everything's going on track. We got a bunch of people believing this crap over here, the lies and stuff. Okay, that's good. And we got people over here that's ignoring these people over here that's dropping the truth. They're not being listened to. Okay, that's good too. It's a way of them monitoring this to make sure that their investments are going just fine. Okay, so I know like I said again, we covered quite a bit here. So finally, let's just wrap it up here and just say this. It's 2.5 hours. I told you it's going to be kind of long. I thought we were going to make it there a little bit shorter, but what's the conclusion? How do you get out of this? How do you get out of these loops? Well, I kind of gave you a suggestion somewhere in the middle there, is really abandoning this desire that's been put inside of us that we got to have representation, or we got to have a name, or you got to have, you got to assign yourself a name, or, I'm a black person, or I'm an African American, I'm this or that or whatever. No, I'm an individual in search for truth. That's my identification. I'm an individual who demands the truth. If you want to, I know that's too long to put on a line, but that's who I am. Now, I will pull from my history and experiences and learn from that. I'm not shying away from that. You know what I'm saying? I'll pull and learn from those things. But at the same time, I'm not going to be restricted by the titles that they gave me. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that's what I'm telling you. Don't accept their titles. That's really if you can start from there, then I think you're well on your way to becoming a true free individual. You're on your way out of this matrix. So like I said, again, I know this was a very long video, and I would just, again, I really appreciate you. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I hope you got something out of this. This is one of those videos that's like a little pocket here, the little pocket here, and then we just kind of bring it together at the end, and hopefully you get it. Okay. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. You guys take care, and I'll see you soon. I'm just like, wow, I'm gonna have to go sit down somewhere after this one. So you guys take care. We'll talk to you next time.